Today, we're making chicken fajita nachos. Welcome to the new Crow Studio Kitchen. It's been almost 2 years now that we've been working towards this, and I'm so thankful to finally be here. There's been so many people who've helped us along the way, and there was way more work than I ever anticipated would go into buying an old building and restoring it so that we could put this new studio in. Thank you to each and every one of you who followed and supported us over the last few years. Without you, this wouldn't be possible. And our goal is to bring you as much high-quality recipe content that we can possibly bring. I love food, and I want to share that passion with each and every one of you. And it wouldn't be fitting to get started in this kitchen without cooking some nachos. It's what a lot of you first saw me doing, making some chicken or steak nachos and flipping it upside down. We've had so much success with that. And I was talking to my wife about what we had to start with, and there was no doubt about it. It had to be some nachos. Now, this is going to be a little bit different, but pretty similar to what we've done in the past. I am adding some fajita vegetables. That's how I've come to love it at home when I'm making it for myself or for my family. But this is a fun dish to make, so let's get started. The first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be making the marinade for the chicken. I'm going to be using boneless, skinless chicken thighs, and I highly recommend you do the same. Now, to me, chicken thighs are by far the best cut on a chicken. It has the most flavor. It has a little bit room for error whenever you're cooking it, so you can overcook it a little bit and still have some delicious flavor. And it really absorbs this marinade really well. So to get started on that, we're going to go in with about a cup and a half of olive oil. That's going to really help spread this marinade around the chicken. And of course, I'm going to be adding a shot of Allegro original marinade. Now, you've seen us add some soy sauce to this marinade in the past. I find that adding this Allegro adds a lot more flavor, and I really love that for this chicken. Next up, we're going to throw in just a handful of cilantro. This isn't measured in any way, of course. And then next up, we're going to add some chipotle peppers and adobo sauce. This is everything to me. This adds an extraordinary amount of flavor. Gives it a little bit of heat, but it's really not anything too terribly spicy. And of course, you could blend all this up and get like more of a paste, but this chicken's going to be well marinated. That's why we're going to be doing it in a Ziploc bag here after we mix it all together so that we can really work it into the chicken. Now, we've got about 6 or 8 cloves of garlic. All I'm going to do is giving it a quick smash. There's no need to go in and mince this, especially for just a marinade. But I do find that actually smashing it like this and opening up the actual structure of the garlic gives it so much more flavor than just throwing it in there as it is. All right, now I'm going to take some white onion, a few little chops here. Nothing too specific, but we want to get some of that onion flavor in there as well. We're going to save some of the other half of this white onion because we're going to do some fajita vegetables to go along with it. Next up, I'm going to take one jalapeno. I'm going to cut the sides off of it. That's going to give us some of that jalapeno flavor without adding too much heat. If you want it extra spicy, go ahead and cut it up with the center in there. It's going to give it more heat. Going to give this a rough chop. Next up, we're going to take some limes and put the juice of about two or three limes in there, and be sure to roll it out on your cutting board. That's going to open it up and allow a lot more juice to come out. And last but not least, we're going to add the good old Crow fajita rub. This is going to add a ton of those Mexican flavors we really like, the cumin, some Mexican oregano, smoked paprika, cayenne, things like that. And I'm going to add about 3-4 tablespoons of this to it. I'm just eyeballing it, but you can find the full recipe at crowfood.com, where you can also find the rub itself. Now we're just going to give this a really good mix, and now we're ready to add our chicken. Like I said, boneless, skinless chicken thighs. I've used other cuts. They just don't do the same for me. Like I said, there's a lot more room for error. You can overcook these a little bit and you're going to still have great flavor. And quite frankly, I think it absorbs a marinade better than a chicken breast or anything else. So I like this for a lot of different reasons. And one thing you don't want to do here, you don't want to overcrowd your bag. You really want to be able to work that marinade in there. So I can already tell I'm going to go ahead and get 2 Ziploc bags. Got our Ziplocs ready to go. Now we need to pour this in. Of course, with 2, we're going to do half and half. So just kind of carefully throw in plenty of that in the first bag. Kind of make sure you get it evenly distributed. Try to make less of a mess than I am if you can. It'd be hard to make more of a mess, if I'm being honest. I think that's the other thing my wife is more excited about than anything is this mess isn't in our home kitchen anymore. So All right, now let's get these zipped up. I'm gonna leave a lot of air in it at first so that we can kind of toss it around, has some room to move. And then once you feel like you've got it worked in really well, we're gonna take the air out of the bag, squeeze it out there. Mix it up one more time, get it nice and flat. That's taking up the whole entire space of the bag. And now we're good to let this marinate. And for me, I want to go at least 3 hours, if not overnight. The longer you let it sit, the more it's going to really absorb those flavors, and the better it's going to taste. The more tender it's going to be. It's just the more flavor it's going to have overall. So I'm going to put this in the fridge, let it sit for about 3 or 4 hours, and we'll start getting this cooked. Okay, so it's been about 4 hours since we first started marinating this chicken. You can let this go even longer if you want to, but this has been long enough for us. So we need to go ahead and get this chicken cooked so we can get these nachos put together. We've got our queso going over here to the side. I'm not gonna get into the full recipe for that. We're gonna do that one here in 2 days. So if you stay tuned, be sure to subscribe to our channel, or if you're on Facebook, be sure to follow us. So today we're gonna be using this grill pan. Of course, I prefer grilling this over a charcoal grill if I have the option to. We don't have that set up here yet. We're trying to figure out ways we can do that. But this is gonna be just fine. You can cook this in a skillet. Like I said, I've got a grill pan. And what we've been doing is we've been sitting this out for about 5 minutes so it can come to room temperature. You don't wanna put it in there too cold. Otherwise, it's gonna be harder for that the middle of that chicken to get cooked at the same rate that the outside of it is. You know, once you get to that middle being cooked, it's gonna be burnt on the outside. We do want this to be cooked over high heat right now. We're gonna turn it down once we put it in the pan, but we want a good sear on this, and you gotta have high heat in order to do that. And we're not worried about patting this dry or anything like that. We're going straight in. Try to get the chunks of cilantro or anything like that off, but it isn't gonna hurt anything either. So that sound, that sizzle you hear, that's what we're looking for. We want some high heat for this to get it started. You don't want to overcrowd your pan too much. This is definitely all it's going to hold. It's borderline overcrowded as it is, so don't overdo it. I think this is going to be fine, but as you can hear, the sizzle's going down a little bit because it's cooling off. So we're going to let that come back up to temperature. Now, while that's going on, we're going to be cutting up some bell pepper and some white onion. This is going to be the fajita vegetables we're going to add to it. You could add some jalapenos, some tomatoes, anything like that. This is all I want on it, but I really like the addition of this to it. So take a knife and cut little strips like this, long ways. So we're going to take, I've already got a piece of the bell pepper cut up for something else. We're going to cut it into strips. You can use red or yellow bell pepper, or whatever you want. I like those green ones. They're all about the same. As this chicken's cooking, you don't want to do too much to it. You want to let it sit there as much as you can so you can get a little bit of a crust develop. It's going to take a few minutes here before we give it a flip. All right, after a few minutes here, we're going to give it a flip. You can start to see a little bit of that char we're getting. That's what we're looking for. Don't be too concerned about chicken being undercooked. If it's not where we want it, by the time we get ready to cut it, we can throw it back in this pan into little cubes and let it finish cooking that way. But the best way to tell if it's going to be done or not is with an instant read thermometer. Just be sure to use that. That's the only way to guarantee you got something fully cooked. We're going to let this go for another 5 minutes or so, and then we're going to check it. Now, I'm also going to go ahead and add in some of these peppers and onions to the side here. They're going to start cooking kind of alongside it. That way it has time to slowly start to get soft, and then towards the end, once we remove the chicken, we can kind of crisp up these vegetables right there at the end. Another little trick here, so as you can see, there's a lot of splatter coming around from this. I'm just gonna take a little piece of aluminum foil, and we're just gonna kind of drape it over the top. It's not gonna do a whole lot in terms of keeping all that heat in, which it'll do a little bit of that, and that's great, but it's gonna keep from splattering all over the place and making any more of a mess. Okay, let's take a look here. Been going for a few minutes, and that's the kind of char we're looking for there. And these vegetables are starting to soften up a bit. Now these are some pretty thick chicken thighs, so these are taking a little bit longer than you would normally have to cook them. And I think in order to make that a little easier on us, what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut it up and then finish it into little bite-sized pieces. That way it cooks together a little bit slower like this, but now we can finish it off pretty quickly without taking too much longer for this cook time. Again, these are pretty massive chicken thighs. compared to normal, I feel like. So they're taking a little bit longer, especially with the smaller pan. Over the grill, it wouldn't matter as much, but let's go ahead and let these rest for a second. Remove this from the heat. But yeah, all these onions and peppers are gonna soak up all that delicious flavor left here in this pan. They're gonna be great on these nachos. And all we're looking for here are some bite-sized pieces. This chicken's actually cooked all the way through. It's a little surprising as big as some of them are, but this is looking great. Look at how juicy that looks. My goodness. All right, our chicken's cooked all the way through. Now we need to finish up these peppers and onions here. All we're looking for is a little char there, and we're starting to get that already, so this won't take much longer. Now, I've done this in the past. We've added a bunch of salsa, some pico. We've got recipes for all that coming out. You add whatever you want to these nachos. They're your nachos. I'm keeping it pretty simple, adding these fajita vegetables to it. But the concept is the same. All right, so this chicken is ready. Now it's time to start assembling these nachos. We got our queso here. Now, if you've seen me make nachos before, you know I do it a little bit differently than most people. It's one of the things that's been one of our most viral videos every time we do it. It's a lot of fun. And it all stemmed from me wanting to have a better chip to queso ratio. It's hard to say. We're gonna put it in a pot, layer it with multiple layers so each layer has an even distribution of toppings. And then we're gonna flip it over upside down so that we can reveal a perfectly balanced plate of nachos. Now we've got our homemade tortilla chips here. We've got a video coming out on that too here in a few days, so be sure to stay tuned for that. This is one of the easiest things to do that makes the biggest difference. I highly recommend making your own chips, and as you'll see here in a minute, once we make nachos, these chips last a little bit longer so they don't get soggy nearly as quickly and they kind of hold their structure better. So I highly recommend that. And like I mentioned, you can have some pico de gallo, you can have some good salsa here. I'm just gonna top this with some fresh jalapenos. So we're gonna go in with some of those here so they'll be on top once we flip it upside down. So we're gonna go in with a little bit of this queso here. Just enough to kind of coat it. Go in with some of our toppings, our fajita chicken. We're gonna start layering in some chips. And we're gonna repeat that process. And be sure to spread it out pretty evenly once it's in this pot as well. Try to make less of a mess than I did. And this is great for any kind of get together. If you're having a football watch party going to the tailgate. We had so many people make this for the Super Bowl. It's just a fun time and it's a fun way to do it. All right, here's what we're gonna do. You can use a sheet tray. I've got a plate that kind of fits over this pot just perfectly. But all we're gonna do is give it a flip. Probably a little bit bigger plate would have been good for this. Hey, we're on a cutting board, this is fine. But you can see how evenly distributed all this is. Look at that. Listen, this is messy. It's supposed to be messy. It's nachos. That is so good. This is delicious. And look at the even distribution. Everything's covered. You're not gonna get a bite that's better than other bites. I'm so happy with this, and you will be too.
The full recipe can be found at crowfood.com, along with our rubs, merchandise, and dozens of other great recipes. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and as always, thanks for watching.